They weren't mannequins. They weren't dolls. They were children. When police stepped into a cramped apartment in Nizhny Novgorod, they expected dusty books and cemetery maps. Instead, they found 29 small figures sitting on couches, shelves, even a child's bed, dressed, posed, and watching television. Some had music boxes inside their chests. Others had toy eyes glued into wax faces, and the man who called them his family was standing calmly in the doorway. The victims were not connected in life. They came from different families, different neighborhoods, different years. Girls between the ages of 3 and 13, children who died of illness, accidents, or violence. They were buried, mourned, and slowly faded from public memory. Parents brought flowers, schools held moments of silence, graves were visited, until one day some were found empty. Coffins broken from below, soil disturbed, nameplates missing. No one imagined where their daughters had gone. On November 2, 2011, police arrived at an apartment belonging to Anatoly Yuryevich Moskvin, a respected linguist, a historian, a man known in academic circles as a genius. They weren't there for murder. They were investigating grave vandalism. But when the door opened, the smell hit first, then the silence, then the realization that the dolls seated neatly around the room had once been alive. Anatoly Moskvin wasn't a suspect at first. He was an expert, a polyglot who spoke 13 languages, a historian of cemeteries who had walked over 700 burial grounds, a man trusted by police and universities alike. Colleagues described him as eccentric but harmless. So how did a scholar become the center of one of Russia's most disturbing criminal discoveries? The answer, investigators realized, began decades earlier. At first, investigators feared the worst: a serial killer, a pedophile, a predator hiding behind intellect. But the autopsies told a stranger story. None of the children had been killed by Moskvin. Instead, he took them after death, exhumed them, and brought them home. He claimed the spirits asked him to, and that belief traced back to a childhood trauma he called the kiss of death. Inside Moskvin's apartment, investigators found instructions, not for murder, but for mummification: salt, baking soda, cloth wrapping, wax masks. Each body had been carefully preserved, then dressed in bright clothes to look alive. Some had music boxes placed inside their rib cages so they could sing. He celebrated birthdays, read bedtime stories, watched cartoons with them. In his mind, he wasn't stealing children. He was saving them from the cold. One victim stood out: Olga Chardimova, 10 years old, murdered in 2002, buried by her grieving family. A year later, her body was gone. For 9 years, someone left gifts at her grave: notes, poems, messages, signed D.A., the kind angel. That angel was Moskvin. When Olga's mother learned her daughter had been sitting in a stranger's apartment all that time, she collapsed, and after reclaiming her child's remains, she buried Olga again, this time in an unmarked grave. Moskvin was never convicted of murder. Doctors diagnosed him with paranoid schizophrenia. The court ruled him unfit for trial. Instead of prison, he was sent to a psychiatric hospital, where he remains today. He has shown no remorse, and when asked about the families, he said, "You abandoned your girls. I brought them home and warmed them up." Doctors once suggested his release. Then he added one final warning: if freed, he would dig them up again. And so the question remains: Was Anatoly Moskvin a monster or a man who disappeared into his own delusion?